Hey everyone, Pastor Wes here with you on Sunday morning. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying warm, and hopefully this snow will be melted today and we get back to normal. Last week we had begun a new series. I wanted to get it on video because there were some things that you need to know for next week as we set up going into this, and we were unable to get it on video. So to catch everybody up, I wanted to kind of hit back on some of this today, and it's this new journey of responding to such a great God that we serve. And really, it's hard to know where to begin when your subject is God Himself. I mean, a subject that is more important than anything else that we could ever study, because everything else in life emanates from the knowledge of God. And even coming up with a title for this study was difficult because nothing can fully express the subject, especially since God is more than the sum total of all of His attributes. David said of God, he says, "Such knowledge is too wonderful for me." But God invites us to know Him. We can be as close to God as we desire to be. He wants us to contemplate all that He is, because nothing else matters without Him. The more we know God, the better we understand how to live. And you can't imitate God if you don't understand what you're imitating. And so in order for life to be meaningful, something must be big enough to warrant our commitment. There must be something out there that's big enough to warrant all of our affections. And the only thing that fits that qualification is God Himself, not only because of who He is, but because of knowing who He is defines much of who we are. Much of the confusion about day-to-day living comes from the fact that we only see the trees and we miss the forest of this great God that we serve. And I like what Charles Spurgeon said one time. He said, "I believe the proper study of God's elect is God. The proper study of a Christian is the Godhead. The highest science, the loftiest speculation, the mightiest philosophy which could ever engage the attention of a child of God is the name, nature, person, work, the doings, the existence of the great God whom we call Father." And I pray that by the time we finish this study, not only will we agree with Spurgeon, but more importantly, we're going to know a little bit more about this great God. And so my purpose in this opening part, it really is just to set the stage, so to speak, by considering just some of the important foundational truths about God. And then we're going to deal with some of God's perfections, or what we call the attributes, the characteristics of God. What is God like? Who is God? And knowing this is all critical because, again, if you misdefine God, then you misdefine everything else in life, because everything emanates from God. You can literally make sense of nothing if you don't first make sense of God. No study of God can be comprehensive. And we talked about this a little bit last week. There are three reasons why no study of God can ever be comprehensive. And first of all, it has to do with the sheer limitation of our human mind. We have a finite mind where God is infinite. He's an infinite being. But our finite mind cannot fully grasp all that God is and who God is. He's too big. Second's the moral problem. There's the presence of sin even in our regenerated, born-again, converted state. We have a limited capacity for understanding spiritual truth. And the third reason why a study of God cannot be fully comprehensive is because we just simply have a resource problem. God has not told us everything about Himself. There are things that we just don't know yet, things that we can't understand, things that we can't handle just yet. And so not everything has been revealed about who God is and how He operates. And so because of this greatness of our subject, we're just going to be going through many portions of Scripture throughout it. But again, due to the limitations of time, space, my own finiteness, our own finiteness in our mind and our thinking, we're never going to exhaust the subject in an entire lifetime or 100 lifetimes. But I do hope that this study is going to be sufficient enough to help you see, to help you taste and see that the Lord is good. And so as I begin, I struggle because I said I feel a little bit like Art Linkletter. He saw a little boy drawing a picture and he said, "What are you doing?" And the little boy said, "Well, I'm drawing a picture of God." And Mr. Linkletter said, "Well, I thought no one has ever seen exactly what God looked like." And the little boy quickly looked up and responded. He said, "Well, when I get through, they will." And even though we don't know exactly what God looks like, I hope that by the time that we finish this study, that we will have painted a picture of God that's definable and defensible. Because the study of the knowledge of God, again, is the most important pursuit that we can go through in this life. Absolutely nothing is more important. Of all the things that matter in your life and mine, to know God through a study of His nature, His character, His perfection should be our driving force for this life. And then we'll be able to define everything else accurately. So we're going to start with 3 clarifications before we get into this. First of all, when I talk about the study of the knowledge of God, I'm not referring to an awareness of God. Simply to say that there is a God doesn't say a whole lot about Him, because it would be hard to miss Him entirely when you understand that He is an all-encompassing God. So when I talk about knowing God, I mean being more aware than just the fact that He exists. Secondly, when I talk about knowing God, I mean that you have more than just information about God. That is, knowing that He is the Creator, knowing that He is powerful, knowing that He is this big, grand, majestic spirit being, that He is God. Those are all true, but they're not sufficient when we talk about knowing God, because knowing God means having more than just this religious experience with God or saying that we feel Him. It is valid to have an emotional or a religious experience with God, but to know Him involves more than that. Knowing God involves more than awareness, more than information, more than a religious experience. To know God is to have God rub off on you, to have His character rub off on you, to have His love rub off on you, to enter into this relationship so that when He rubs off on you, it influences everything that you are. It influences every single thing that you do and every thought that you have. And one of the great tragedies today is that we can go to church, we can be aware of God, we can have information about God. If your church has a worship band or a choir or whatever, you can feel God. But you can still leave church without ever having God rub off on you and change the way that you think, change the way that you act, change the way that you live. And so when I talk about knowing God, I'm talking about having the awareness, the information, the religious experience, have all parts of that rub off on you to become part of who you are. And this is where we're going to stop. We're going to pick back up here next Sunday morning and kind of keep going further and further into this subject of knowing God, understanding God, so that we know how to understand ourselves, so that we know how to live this life, do His will, and bring glory and honor to Him. I love you. Hope you have a great week. I love you again. God bless you.